I live on the East Coast, and May would literally leave me. It would be, I would never sleep.
Yeah.
All right, my friends, it is time once again to talk a little PGA DFS. It is close to a true live before lock. I don't get to say that too often in the golf streets, but here at Awesemo.com, we are excited to break down the ZOZO Championship. I am Ben Rasa. I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Lindquist. We are ready to roll here. NBA have started. Football hasn't ended, Eric, and we still have golf to break down. How are you? I know you've been burning it at both ends. How many shows did you do yesterday?
6 is the answer.
6.
It was enjoyable. I actually had a blast. So it was 6 on Monday or was it yesterday? Honestly, the days have bled together in such a way.
I keep thinking it's Thursday today. I'm all messed up about that.
I wish it were Thursday. We'd have a football game on top of an 11-game NBA slate, on top of the ZOZO, which is by far the most exciting part of all of it. I'm lying to you, but I am excited for this golf tournament. I think it's nice to have kind of a true live before lock to be able to make lineups. You're going to have NBA, PGA. It'll be a nice aside here leading into NFL for Thursday. And, I think that having a golf tournament that's done before NFL Sunday, I'm all right with that.
I can deal with it. We got Coastal Carolina playing a little CFB tonight too. Sports aplenty, but as I start every show with, our friends at Monkey Knife Fight sponsoring here, really helping us out, sticking with us. If you haven't been over there, player prop based contest, super easy to play, not a huge time commitment, and it's very, very easy to get started. They're going to get you a great promo code and deposit bonus when you sign up. And you can play NBA, you can play PGA, you can play NFL, UFC still going on, soccer, UEFA Champions League today. Head over to monkeyknifefight.com, choose which game you want to play, your contest type, and your buy-in level. And even better, first match deposit bonus of up to $100 when you sign up with the promo code Awesemo. Eric, we always talk about this. There's a couple different types of formats over there. They've got, rapid fire. You can go head to head against some guys, things like that. I like to do those. You've got Xander in this field, Hideki, Will Z. What say you about Monkey Knife Fight?
I love Monkey Knife Fight. It's a lot of fun to be able to have a different kind of DFS format. It's always nice. And some of these sites, maybe it's a little bit, I don't know, it can be gimmicky from time to time. This is not gimmicky. This is straight up 3x your money. You know exactly what you're getting into. Bunch of birdies. If there's going to be a lot of birdies, which you got to expect out of some of these spots, being able to bet the first round, especially, I think that there's some really nice value. And then the full tournament stuff as well for, the rapid fires. I think that there's more birdie or better, Collin Morikawa versus Hideki. Some of those things are efficient and you kind of want to steer clear of some of those, but then there's a couple that really stand out. You have like a Will Zalatoris versus Hideki. And, I think when you start getting that 0.5 on the other side of it, there's small edges to be had every single time out. So a really fun way to get some exposure to some plays that, within a DFS format, it's basically the entire field. Here, you're basically just isolating certain matchups.
No doubt. And we're gonna drop a couple Monkey Knife Fight picks in just a second, but let's get started with some weather, with some withdraws. Not really, because once again, we've got most of the field here. Paul Casey's got a giant out sticker, but this is not any late breaking news. So what say you on the withdraw front? And then we go to Japan. Let's get that right after. This tournament is in Japan for anyone who's not paying attention. Weather issues. Last time we were here, there was literal monsoons. I don't think we're going to see that this week.
There's going to be some precipitation on Friday. So it's in Narashino. That's kind of where I went to. I found a tower there that I'm not familiar. Why would I even say that? That's such a lie. That was almost a blatant lie where it's like, oh, I'm familiar with this tower.
What are you doing?
In Narashino. I literally just went to Google and put it in. I like to be transparent. That was absurd. So here we are looking at the precipitation. It's going to rain there on Friday, but it's going to be on and off. It looks like it's going to be a little chillier. I think that that's one thing to kind of point out is it looks like it's going to be underneath 70 degrees the entire time leading into Sunday. So if you hit the ball a little bit further, probably not a bad thing like it is most weeks. Just it won't be flying nearly as far in Narashino. And then having some wet weather on Friday. I think scoring will be pretty decent there on Friday. It doesn't look like anybody's going to be immune to it, but 90% chance of precipitation throughout the day there. As far as wind goes, it'll definitely be gustier there that Friday in the afternoon. So maybe a slight, and I mean, a very, very slight edge to Thursday afternoon, Friday morning.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a major issue. Certainly we could have some soft conditions. We'll talk about that, what it could impact with some iron play, with some things like that. But overall, I think we're kind of in the clear with weather and withdrawals. Okay, we just talked about them, but let's dive in a little to Monkey Knife Fight. We'll throw out a couple picks, and we'll talk about them throughout the show as well. I like Xander over 102.5 fantasy points over there. I think it speaks to what you were just talking about. If we get not wind, but rain, particularly soft conditions, these guys can just get so pure with their irons. And we saw Tiger when he won take this course apart, as a lot of guys will. I think that's where I'm initially drawn. Do you like that? Are there other guys that you kind of like on a macro level that would translate to Monkey Knife Fight?
Yeah, I do. And then I like the more or less birdie types for Will Zalatoris, Xander Schauffele, both at 18.5. I don't know. You get 4 guaranteed rounds out of both of them. Means I feel a little less confident about Will, but right now projecting him for more than that. I think he's going to have just a ton of birdie opportunities, as will Xander. I think both of those look like good moors for the full tournament. 3x your money, 18.5 birdies or better. Even if they don't end up in the top end of this golf tournament, which God, I'm hoping Xander is, I think that you're looking at 18.5 birdies or better being a little bit too low for both of them.
No doubt. I think that's how we have to navigate all formats, is just how easy is the course going to play, what skill set, and then how many birdies will be made. It is a par 70, so there's not as many par 5s to take apart, but at the same time, I still think that this course isn't too troubling. So let's go in. Let's talk about Narashino Country Club. You probably are going to tell people that you're intimately familiar with this place, you know all about it, but in reality, do you know anything about it?
I know that Tiger Woods won a golf tournament.
Yeah, that's what I know as well.
It was very enjoyable to watch Tiger Woods win a golf tournament. He was it number 80 that he won here?
He has a lot of wins, and this was one of them.
2, 3. Yeah, no, I think it was 80, but I can't remember exactly. It was beautiful. It was an enjoyable thing to watch. Again, you get to watch this and then go about your day to NFL Sunday. So I enjoy this golf tournament. For that alone, I would say is very kind of them to be able to do that. But as you said, not gonna necessarily have all of the par 5 birdie opportunities that you have there. Number 14 is 608 yards as well. So it's not exactly the most birdieable par 5 that exists on planet Earth. So I think you add that. But number 18, you want to talk about I don't know. Both of these other 2 par 5s are pretty simple. But one thing that Jason pointed out, and I thought was very interesting, is that all these par 4s basically are over 470 or they're under 405. I thought that was kind of a fascinating level. You're going to have a lot of long irons and you're going to have a lot of wedges into these holes. And if the temperatures are going to be chillier, the ball isn't going to be flying nearly as far, 10, 15 yard difference. Some of those par 4s might play very, very difficult compared to what they're used to on tour. If it's wet, ball's not rolling out either. It definitely helps scoring on some of the shorter par 4s, but I think a little bump to some long iron players, not the worst idea in your models this week.
And it is worth pointing out, I'm glad Chet said this, that it is an awkward setup. There are still 3 par 5s. It's just not 4. It's 3 par 5s, 5 par 3s. So it's a little atypical from what we normally see. But at the same time, I do think scoring will be pretty good. It looks like some long irons are definitely in the cards here. There will be some eagles. It is a non-cut, and we're going to talk strategies in that in just a second. But with this course, are you going to build any, maybe factoring in that it could play more difficult than we anticipate? Or are you still going to say, you know what, I'm really going to predominantly target scoring, putting it close, proximity, knocking these in, and not scrambling around the green, things like that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more strokes gain approach action for me. I know that tends to be something I do on a lot of these easier golf courses, but this is also just a par 70 where I do think there are going to be some par 4s that play more difficult. I wish Paul Casey was in this field. That would have been a pretty easy click for both of us. But he's just one of the best long iron players that's ever touched a golf club. So looking at some of these guys, it might be a chance to play a little Emiliano Grillo if you think getting up and down isn't going to be as difficult. How does that sound, Benjamin?
It sounds not bad. I'm not going to lie. Grillo shot like 52 or something on Sunday. It was obscene how good his round. I think he was 11 under on Sunday, just absolutely dealing when I didn't need him to. But you're going to be able to target some definite ball strikers, no doubt about that. And if you want a sneak peek, we've got some free tools today, and one of them is the PGA Golfer rankings. So you can go in and check those out, get a sense of kind of who we're on as a site here. We also have the NBA player projections and the NHL. We're just giving it all away for free, I guess. NBA player projections and NHL player projections. So no matter what sport you're looking for tonight, we've got something for you. And I'm certainly going to be talking about one of our promos a little later in the show, but you want to talk about the format? It is another non-cut.
It's another non-cut. Everybody's getting 4 rounds of golf. Grouped by guys who make a lot of birdies. Grouped by guys who hit their long irons pretty well. Grouped by guys who have great wedges. And then just hope they all make putts. How about that for a game plan?
You solve the riddle. You
There it is.
drive it good, hit it close, and then make all your putts.
And shoot lower than everyone else.
Yeah, and that last week we saw is actually the trick, because you can shoot 65, but you lose strokes to the field, considering how easy the course. I don't think it'll be to that level. Do you?
No, God, no. We knew last week it was going to be a print fest for everybody as far as scoring average goes. And oh boy, did that live up to expectation.
Do you change it? And we did talk about this a little last week, but we obviously don't have a full field to choose from. There's less guys at each price point. Do you alter your strategy? Do you worry more about dupes? Do you leave more money on the table? Is there anything that a non-cut brings different in terms of your process?
So I made more groups for this golf tournament than I've probably made on Fantasy Cruncher in a long time. So first of all, because of the way the salary structure works out, grouping Xander and Collin Morikawa together would be kind of difficult for me. It's hard to believe that that would be an optimal strategy. I have a group to just get one of those two in it. I'm grouping by a lot of different golf types. I'm grouping by long iron play. I'm putting some groups of like the Charlie Hoffmans of the world, along with other great iron players or people who have the ability to hit their irons really, really well. I'm kind of just grouping a little bit of that stuff a little bit more so. And I mean, you taught me how to do those things. So I think that's for me with a no cut event here. I'm just understanding that there's going to be 72 holes, and maybe this golf course type and the play type can be accentuated on a golf course that isn't just a, hey, did you make putts this week on this Tom Fazio garbage golf course in Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it that this is a week, I think, to be creative in your builds, mix it up a little bit with some of the stacks, because there's also a handful of players, and chat, we'll get there. Don't worry. We've got a lot of guys at the bottom here who we simply just don't know much about. They don't play a ton in the States. They play in Japan, and they're here to see if they can make a splash. And that's going to be difficult to decipher. But let's start at the top. It's not nearly what we saw last week. We've got Morikawa, we've got Xander, we've got Will Z, we've got Decky, and we've got Tommy Fleetwood. Okay.
I like Tommy Fleetwood.
What?
I like Tommy Fleetwood.
I thought last time I recommended Tommy Fleetwood, you shunned me. You were saying, "Oh my God." Okay.
I did, and I thought you were an idiot.
His 38th turned you around, made you a believer.
No, the field and getting 4 rounds and his ball striking has been much, much markedly improved. I think those kind of things all kind of shy me towards it too. I also don't know other ways to get super different. I mean, Morikawa, Xander, I love them both. Everybody loves them both. Ownership is showing that. I don't think there's any doubt that they're going to be number 1 and number 2 in terms of ownership. And, talking with Jason, he also was like, maybe you make them 11-8, 11-6. And I'm like, yeah, that would at least make it a conversation where some of these bottom end plays. And, I eliminated a lot of guys out of my pool as well. I mean, I didn't find a whole lot of need for Bill Haas or Hiroshi Iwata or any of these cats down here at the bottom 6K, 6,100 range. So for me, in order to get different and to avoid all of this ownership that's inevitably going to the top end, pairing one of them with a guy like Fleetwood, instead of just pairing him with Joaquin, who's going to be very popular, pairing him with Tringali or some of these other guys that other people might be taking that route for. I don't mind getting to Fleetwood here. I do think the ball striking's better. I did shun you. I apologize. I'm a bad person.
I mean,
and yeah.
He hasn't done anything. I just, it's funny. It's not like I got Tommy Fleetwood right at all. I do think that it's a fine spot for him. He could be one interesting starting point. I'd probably rather go aggressive and have him and Will Z or him and Xander together and really just go for it north of 10. But I do think Fleetwood's well suited for a birdie fest, well suited for a non-cut, well suited for tournaments outside America. He's not going to be popular relative to the range. I think it makes sense in tournaments.
I do too. So this is a time we're agreeing on Tommy Fleetwood. Whereas I think last week, I mean, it's just a completely different field. Yeah, it's a no cut, but I mean, how many other guys here on the top end are really going to burn you? And if there's a path as well, if Morikawa and Xander both play fantastic, having one of them with Fleetwood and Fleetwood gets 10th, where that could somehow end up optimal if Tommy Fleetwood's making a ton of birdies like I think he's capable of on any given week. Do I think he's going to win this golf tournament? No, but I want to get different here. He's at 10%. He's the lowest by far of anybody 9,800 up. I mean, Ricky Fowler is getting more ownership than him now. By the way, fantastic call with Ricky Fowler last week. That ended up making me money.
Good. At least someone got paid off. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that. I definitely think you're going to be able to mix and match. You're going to leave money on the table this week. All of those things are totally reasonable. You're talking about some of the best players in the world. We did see them. Morikawa stormed on Sunday, finished second. He's a great fit anywhere because he's such an elite iron player. I'm kind of partial to Xander, though. We've seen him kind of do this at some of these type of things. I don't make a ton of all his success at like WGCs and small fields, but at the same time, he did gain strokes across the board last week. I feel very comfortable with him.
Yeah, Xander's my highest owned player. And so, talking again about eating the chalk here on this top end, Collin Morikawa, I'm getting to a ton of as well. But as I said, I'm only going to play one of the two in every single lineup. And that's pretty much coming to fruition. 55% of Xander in my 150. And that's just a bigger stand, 44% of Morikawa. So there's one lineup somewhere that does not have one of those two. So God forbid that you don't need one of them.
Let's talk about the rest of the top range. Guys like Neiman crash, lead off the 9K party. Ricky gets a huge price bump to 9,800. Noren, Siwoo, EVR, Keegan. I got to ask you about Ricky first. I finally showed some form, had his chance. Rory, it is what it is. It was nice to see Ricky in the hunt. Does that make him warranted to get a $3,000 price bump and an ownership bump?
I am not playing him. I played him in bulk last week after talking with you. That worked out very, very nicely. He was like 2-3%, was well north of 20. And God, what an unbelievable call. Nice call. Let's hit eject because he's 9,800. And now it's just compared to the rest of the range, it doesn't guarantee you a whole lot. And, do I think that there could be a winner out of this 7-8K range? Absolutely, I do. But more than likely, you're playing Ricky Fowler against the likes of Xander, Morikawa, Zalatoris, Hideki. It's just not as comfortable of a play coming off of last week. I'm probably just going to have a hard pass, especially because now I'm getting Fleetwood for less. I'm able to play Noren for less. I'm able to play Siwoo for less. And then it's just an ownership thing for me. It's just way, way too much. So if he ends up playing fantastic, I'll be rooting for him, but my wallet won't be.
Agree. I love Ricky. Don't think this is a good spot for him. Really interesting stats. He was dominant off the tee, like Rory, dominant off the tee, but he couldn't putt. So a complete 180 from what we used to see with Ricky. I don't know where his game is truly at. I know he can score. I think the reason I liked him last week was not because I thought he was going to contend for the tournament. It was because I thought that even though he was going to make some big mistakes, he can score so well. He makes a lot of birdies. I still think that, but this is not a par 72. It's par 70. And just the price bump gives you more of a pertinent need for placement points. So I'd rather play Neiman or Noren, and I would certainly rather play guys towards the lower half of the nines. What do you make of guys like Maverick, Tringale, Griot, and Mackenzie Hughes?
I mean, God, Maverick McNeil, let's go. It's time. It's time to get going. We know he has a crazy amount of putting upside. He can be dominant from time to time off the tee. He's got some 4.7s, 4.5s. They kind of exist there. And I think his long iron game is always pretty solid too. But I mean, the putter, we just need to spike a putting week from him here again. Have the ball striking be decent. For me, there's just such a ceiling for this guy that's always unexpressed. This reminds me a little bit. I mean, this is a weaker field event. It's very, very top heavy with your 2-3 guys that you're looking at on the top end, but then it's pretty open in this range. And so you kind of play your best available, the guys that you like. And I've always vibed pretty well with Maverick McNeil. Always felt pretty comfortable targeting him in certain spots at AT&T Pro-Am. I know that we were definitely on him there, the last 2 years, and he just continues to top fiver. He got runner up this season. The Fortinet coming off of a really nice showing there back in September. So I think I'm going to just kind of write off that Shriners outing. Hopefully he can kind of rebound a little bit. CJ Cup, it was his home golf course. And I don't know. I never really read anything into that. Always think that that's overblown. So take him over across the pond. Let's go.
No problem with it. He wasn't particularly good last week. He couldn't really strike it, but he's an elite putter. He has no glaring weakness to his game. The field is not that good. So firmly in play. I do think that Griot makes for a better play here. He's getting back to his better ball striking. He can't putt. He's never going to be able to putt. You have to kind of live with that. Mackenzie Hughes for me is a tough evaluation. He always is. He's just not a great tee to green player. He's lost in 4 straight, tailing back to the end of the swing season and the FedEx Cup. But he gains 4 or 5 strokes putting frequently. I think for me, as always, I would rather lean on the ball striking and hope I get lucky putting than lean on the elite putting and hope I get lucky ball striking. That's not as likely to happen, even though sometimes it feels like the bad putters will never flip.
Yep. I like Rio. I'm not obsessed with him here this week, but
neither am I.
I mean, he definitely torched it there. He's shown some crazy upside here. So a little 61, not so bad by young Rio. Nice to see a glimpse of something again.
Yeah, there was definitely a glimpse. I looked at him in the outright market 45-1. I ultimately wanted better than that. Maverick is 35-1. I would rather bet him to win. Neiman's 22. That's a little short for me. It's a tough betting week because the prices are pretty flat because it's a weak field.
Yes and no. We'll get to it a little bit later.
Yeah,
I think that there's some decent long shot value. I don't even want to go there yet. We'll get ourselves down there to my guy at 6,800 that I think has a chance to win this golf tournament. And I think just kind of dabbling, not going crazy. Anytime you get these top heavy fields, I mean, we talked about how much I love Sam Burns on Bermuda 3 weeks ago when he had his W, but at his number, it was like 10-1, 12-1 at different books. It's like, how can you possibly pull the trigger there? I would much rather take my shots avoiding this top end and kind of sprinkling it around. 35-1 even on Maverick. It's kind of a tough number for me. I think 45-1 on Grillo, I would prefer actually to bet between the two, but that's just kind of, we know they both have a ceiling, can definitely go out in one of these weaker field events and put on a show, but probably not going to be betting either. I'd rather just sprinkle longer on this tournament.
That's not a bad strategy. Open it up to like, even if you go top 10s with guys that are like 4 to 6-1, there's a lot of guys like that, even higher. Let's dive into the mid-range, but before I do, as Nightbot, they know what's going on. Celebrate the start of the NBA season. Tip-off was last night. The Lakers are possibly going winless. It could be bad. We've got a tip-off deal, though, and it's going to allow you to get all of Awesemo Plus, 50% for your first week off the Platinum plan. So that's going to cover NBA, but it also covers golf and football and college football and soccer and NHL and everything that we do, and it's the promo code Curry. CURRY, like Steph Curry. Use that promo code at checkout or click the link in the description of this video to activate. It's going to be full access to all the premium content and tools that we've got for every sport, the projections, the ownership, boom bust tool, lineup builders, all that great stuff. The offer is valid through Monday, October 25th. So you want to go and do that right now. And again, get started for your membership, $15. You get everything that we've got for the week. It's a great, great deal. If you have any questions, you can always message support at awesemo.com, but great deal there with the promo code Curry. All right. We mentioned the 9s. Now we dive into the 8s. Johnny Vegas. A lot of people are on CT Pan. Sharp people that I know really like this spot there with the par 70 layout. Maybe they correlate this to like RSM. You got KH Lee, Ortiz, Hoffman, Lanto, a lot of different types of names in the 8s. Where were you drawn when you saw this pricing?
A lot of sharp people are box score watching with CT Pan. Stop it. I mean, that's what it is.
I like CT Pan in life.
I know. I like CT Pan in life. I think he looks like a nice, respectable indiviable.
He's got a medal, doesn't he? Doesn't he have an Olympic?
He does. He has medal? A third. He took bronze. Roy McIlroy and he said, no, this is mine. That's what he said.
Where is he in the markets? You got him
45-1, I think he was.
350 for a top 10. It's not bad.
I don't mind that. It's box score watching. I mean, if I'm not going to play all of Ricky Fowler and recent form, very, very good. Do you feel comfortable playing CT Pan in bulk, knowing that he's going to be probably the most owned of this range? I mean, our ownership on him, when I went through this and it was Jonathan Vegas and CT Pan, I had to take a little bit of a step back, and I think I would rather play the entire rest of the range where everybody's getting guaranteed the 4 rounds and take shots. I'd rather go to KH Lee. I'd rather go to Charlie Hoffman. Charlie Hoffman for sure. I am way overweight too in this golf tournament. I think that it makes a lot of sense. If it's going to be more of a technical build out, if it's going to be iron play, it's been bad, but I know the kind of potential that can exist there. I'm pairing him with a lot of like Pat Perez type stuff too. I think those two have been showing up in a lot of lineups together for me. Just trying to correlate some game types a little bit, but CT Pan I think would have been a good play, but the ownership's so there. I would rather just try to play some game theory there and go elsewhere, considering it's been really good for him, but I think regression is in store.
I don't mind, if you're going to tell me you were looking elsewhere because of ownership or leverage, it's never going to push back. I do think he's playing great. The interesting thing about this is that I actually think if you're looking for skill sets, pairing them all together and going hybrid balanced is the move, because all of these guys are not good drivers of the ball. They're elite iron players and they can putt. CT Pan, Lanto, KH Lee, even Charlie Hoffman to an extent. He's not a good putter, but I think it's not crazy to have three of them in a lineup. Maybe you leverage like that, because a lot of people do traditionally say like, oh, I just clicked someone in this range, let me go elsewhere. That's one way to do it.
My thing though, too, is wouldn't you call CT Pan one of the more volatile players of the range?
I I totally understand what you're saying. When you're talking about high variance players, and he's overpriced because of the weak field, ownership becomes even more pertinent, because CT Pan doesn't have a stable top 20 outcome in any field. None of these guys really do. So there is more. It's not like when you're looking at like Rahm and those guys where their floors are so much higher. I still think that there's merit to doing it. You just need to mix up or leave money on the table.
Okay. Yeah. And that's kind of my thinking with it, going through this field and having Vegas and Pan just so prevalent in everybody's lineups. I thought it was a pretty easy eject button. I would prefer to play Vegas of the two. I think our projections kind of agree with that, but CT Pan, there's nothing to really take away, but 6.5 strokes gained putting is not something close to what I'm expecting for him this time out. That's how he went about getting sixth at the Fortinet. And then Sanderson's 2.6. He was gaining across the entire board there. 6.2 strokes gained, tee to green, 2.6 with the putter. That's how he got 11th there. I'm thinking that if we get some of that putting regression, and it's either very hot or very cold going through that, I think that there's just more volatility that exists with him than the rest of the range. I think I'm just going to try to take my shots elsewhere and hope that it's not CT Pan that burns my week down.
It is true that, and you can look, even if you're looking right now, when you scroll through his strokes gained putting, he's a spike putter. He has nothing, 5, nothing, 7, nothing, 6. And when you have guys like that, when you hit them, huge upside, but week to week, it's really difficult to kind of ride out their form, because you're just going to get some weird outcomes in there. So,
just to finish the note on that, I thank you for pointing that out as well, but that's the time. Those are the exact players you want to play when they're not popular. And then you just want to fade them when they're 20%. He's the third, fourth highest owned player in this field. For me, that just immediately sends off alarm bells.
Well said. I can't argue with that on a macro level. I do kind of like the course for him, but there are slant pivots, no doubt, with Lanto, with KH Lee. Vegas is a different type of player, but he's certainly in play if you want to go driver heavy. What about the bottom here? You've got Shank, Kirk, Matt Wallace is there, even a guy like Luke List as we start the 7K range.
I really don't know what to think about this entire range. I think I felt better doing the show earlier this week. Chris Kirk was the one guy that we kind of talked about quite a bit. I have 20% of him. I feel comfortable just being a little bit over on him. I just think he's a pretty good player, and it hasn't been as prevalent here of late, but I think that this could be an interesting course type. I mean, he does a little bit of everything really, really well. Looking at the putting, he had the spike putting week last week at the CJ Cup, 4.7 strokes gained there, and never been the best putter, but he is definitely a little bit of volatility as well. I think that I just prefer getting down to him than having that little bit of savings. Playing a lot of Charlie Hoffman, already kind of expressed that at the 8,500 number, but nobody else really that's sticking out to me. I thought I was going to get some Adam Schenk. I really didn't. Just a phenomenal putter. If you're going to just kind of hope for that, he's consistent as it gets in that department. But I think Chris Kirk is really the only guy that I have any interest in. Lanto Griffin, I'm also surprised. I thought I was going to get to a lot of him, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't have everyone in this range. I do think these are pretty interchangeable guys. I don't see like, oh, this guy's far superior. it's a lot of 60-40s, 55-45s in my mind, coin tosses. So ownership becomes very important. Is distance important? I think I would personally answer that in a kind of a hedge way. It can be if you want to make it, but I think if you want to punt off the tee, you're just going to put tremendous strain on your long irons. It can be done like that here from what I've seen. You can shave down these holes if you want to be aggressive and have some wedges, have some short irons. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to lay back, you can do that and you'll just be hitting longer irons in. So I don't think it's a prerequisite.
Agreed. I think everything you said is great there. For me, the one thing you might be able to say is if it gets super, super wet on that Friday specifically, and then the course stays wet there into Saturday, you could play a little bit longer and you go through some of these par fours. I mean, you've got number 4, 505-yard par 4, the hardest hole on the golf course. You've got, obviously 2 par 5s that are 587 plus. If you want to have those be scoring holes, you better be bombing it out there a little bit. You've got 486 for number 9. I mean, when you start talking about 60-degree weather with rain, especially if it gets soggy out there, you're going to want to have some of these bombers that are able to kind of get it out there. So as I said, I've made more groups for this golf tournament just to pair some of the plays. Somebody just brought up Luke List in the chat. We'll get to him. He's at the upper 7s. And, I think he's a guy you can always play on any kind of a bomber build that you're going to be going towards. But I think distance could be a factor. I just don't know how much rain it's going to get. I'm not a weatherman. All I'm doing is basically trying to say, hey, if it plays like this, XYZ will happen.
I never get Luke List right. It's impossible. He can't putt, and he hasn't gained strokes putting since July. None of that is good. I guess my real question is, you have to ask yourself, okay, there's always outcomes where he flips the putter, but if he doesn't, what are the chances that I get there at 7,900 if he's negative strokes gained putting? Obviously, it's not 0% by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, do you think he's hitting it good enough to justify that? Now, he has gained strokes tee to green in 8 straight events. What do you do with a guy like this? Because I think it's an interesting target that friend of the show, Mr. Durkee, is talking about.
So contrary to CT Pan, who I think is very volatile, and I think Luke List is volatile as well, there's really no doubt about it, but you're getting some discount savings. So I'm paying 7,900 for volatility as opposed to paying 8,800 for volatility. And I think that at least has to be discussed. That's what we play, is we play an ownership and a salary game, and we kind of combine the elements together and we try to come up with the perfect formula every single week. Luke List, I to give you some context, I thought when you were listing off his bad putting that you were going to put a year at the end of whatever you were saying. He's lost since July, and then you were going to say like 2019. That's how bad of a putter he is. That I just know that he's lost in a zillion straight golf tournaments with the putter. And it's probably something where he could win a golf tournament just being like 1 or 2 strokes gained putting. Like if he could flip it to that kind of regard, his iron play has some of these massive spike weeks. Barbasol, John Deere, Wells Fargo. He gets so hot, he'd drive in the golf ball with the approach and decent around the greens too. A really good chipper of the golf ball. And I think that might be something that can bail him out a little bit with the bad putting. So I think just having all the other elements to it, if you can find any kind of a spike putter week, I mean, you just go down to any of those. The Wells Fargo 6th, John Deere was flat 4th. Barbasol, he lost 2.3 and got 5th. I mean, that's what you're talking about with Luke List. Does absolutely everything else well. So with the discount to CT Pan, I'm willing to embrace volatility with him and less so with Pan.
Yeah, I mean, as you go down, and he can get crazy hot scoring, no argument there. I also think there's less opportunity cost. I don't really like Higo. I don't like Streb. I think Grace is fine, but he's not playing great. Harry Higgs is playing well, but I still think all in all, Luke List is every bit the player. I do like Higgs, though, here. Do you find yourself in the mid-7s looking to those type of players? You've got Brendan Todd. You mentioned Pat Perez earlier. Where do you see yourself focused?
How do you feel about Brendan Grace? This guy was just popping in my model this week.
He's not playing good, but at the same time, he lost 6 strokes putting last week. And when you're in a birdie fest like that, that's a ton of missed opportunities. He didn't really strike it well, though, either. So I worry a little about his form compared to everyone else, but I also think he's probably the best long-term macro player of the range.
That's exactly what it is. You're investing in the player, not the form. And I think that's kind of what it was. I try in a lot of when I'm going through scenarios, I try to remove extreme outlier performances. And Brandon Grace has had quite a few of those with the putter and off the tee of late. I know at the BMW minus 4.2 strokes gained off the tee as well. He's never been a very good driver of the golf ball, but I think he is one of the better putters compared to what we have seen. And considering that was the thing that was just so atrocious, I think it's an automatic write-off for it. And coming into this week too, somebody plays just atrocious like that or has something go wrong with the putter, maybe he just goes back to the lab, figures it out. And if he corrects that wrong, there's some massive strokes gain approach that we've seen on harder golf courses. I would say Memorial, US Open, but both of those type of places, those tracks are really emphasizing iron play and just being extremely accurate in that department and being decent enough off the tee where he was able to gain in both of those. So I think I'm just going to kind of invest in the player and not the form.
I think Harry Higgs does deserve some consideration, though. He really can score. Okay. He flipped everything last week. He finally lost off the tee, but his irons were good. He was great putting. He can do it. He's a good player. 7,500 seems fair. He grinds. He scores well. I do expect him to outscore his placement points. So don't mind some Harry Higgs here. Working down, you've got Perez, Munoz, Matt Jones. Then we get a super interesting name, Takumi Kanaya. This is someone with a lot of talent. Seen him play a little bit. Certainly he's got some experience. I want to talk about him. What do you see yourself in the bottom of the 7K range?
Takumi Kanaya. What a wonderful phrase. Was that good? I thought that was fun.
That's
was
not
fun
bad.
For me.
That's a
Kanaya.
I do like the Lion King, so you get a pass there.
No pass and craze. I have 0% of him.
I have
0%.
Why? Don't hate.
It's my Kanaya. Problem-free philosophy.
See, people,
Takuma
this is
Kanaya.
Let me just tell you from this side of the glass. This is why here at Awesemo, we really need to put a hard cap on how many shows you can do a day, because clearly when you do too many shows,
was a young warthog,
it can really derail mentally what goes on. So what are you going to do with Kanaya? Seriously, though, you've got Perez, you've got Munoz.
I have 0.
So you just have no interest?
I have 0%.
Okay.
He's popular at 10.6%.
That's a good point.
He's popular. I have 0%. I don't have him in my pool.
I don't mind that argument with these type of guys. I don't in a week like this. It's not the most prolific talking point, but you're making a very sound argument for these guys because they're flyers. And when you're talking about flyers, it's low probability outcomes. You want the most payoff. If he's 10% owned, that makes it tougher. This guy's got experience in Europe. He knows what he's doing. I think he's a fine, fair play at that cost, but you also have a million other guys that you could say that about. Pat Perez would be one of them. Sepp Straka. Doug Ghim is a flat 7. What about Ghim?
I want to close the loop on Takumi. In all seriousness, because again, I'm a professional and I want to talk to you about my professional opinion. This is like the Masters for Takumi, and you haven't had the opportunity for him to showcase what he's capable of doing here yet. At any point in time, he's popular. He's popular. If he wasn't popular, if he was 6,200 and popular, maybe I don't care. He's 7,200. There's some guys like Matt Jones would rather play way more of him. Brandon Steele would rather play a lot more of him. Pat Perez, I've already talked about 3.1%. I think it's just way too low for Pat Perez. I definitely like getting over the field on him. And Doug Ghim, I have tons of. I love Doug Ghim. I think that the boss man loves Doug Ghim this week. Saw some of the pro play stuff as I was finishing that up here. Just right before lock here. I think just kind of these bottom 7s, I'm finding myself bottom 7, upper 6s quite a bit. And maybe that's a result of how much Morikawa and Schauffele I'm playing. But I think it's also that I just think this is you want to talk about course fit. Doug Ghim, I think, really can get it done in a lot of different ways. Exceptional driver of the golf ball. Somebody that in a ball striking perspective, you're looking for that putting to just be flat. So considering I have interest in Luke List, I think Doug Ghim makes a great pairing with him.
So my biggest question about Doug Ghim is, and I don't think we know the answer to this, is he any good, honestly? Like, he's a name that a lot of people are drawn to. He's got some pedigree. If you look at his form and just general stats, I don't know that this guy has done a ton to distinguish himself as the next big thing. Now, we may look back, he's got a huge variance because if he breaks through, if he starts really putting together form, this could be, Will Z style, and he really vaults up the ranks. I don't think he's even close to that yet. His strokes gain data across the board is very average at best. Give me Straka.
Love it.
Now I'm going to get in a lot of trouble here. I think you can go to Troy Merritt at
yes, you can.
Very low ownership.
Yep.
Talk to me, please.
Okay, Troy Merritt. So Troy Merritt, and I didn't talk about Sepp Straka. I have Sepp Straka as well. Talked about him at length on Monday. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about bad form, sure, Sepp Straka has been horrendous. But I love Troy Merritt. Troy Merritt, when you look at his strokes gained data on there, there's certain players that have red marks that just pop up on different models, on different places around the industry that you can go to kind of find a lot of your strokes gained data. There isn't any that really exists on Troy Merritt. He finds lots of ways to get it done, and it just somehow never shows up in the box score. Eventually, it's a results-based game, but you got to look at process. And over the course of the last 50 rounds in this field, 5th strokes gained short game, 45th off the tee. That's not going to be very impressive. 42nd approach, but he's moderate there and just such an elite putter. I'm willing with somebody who I know is going to probably be gaining strokes putting a lot more than he has been of late. The Shriners and Northern Trust, we write those two off. He has massive spike putting weeks, like 7.2, 6.7, 8. That's just a little glimpse behind that. I mean, those are ridiculous kind of numbers. He had a really hot spring this season. I really do like Troy Merritt here.
Yeah, again, I think one of the big distinguishing points to make here between Troy Merritt and some of the guys that we've talked about is that A, he's much cheaper, and B, if you get him right, you're not amongst 15 or 20% of the field. So it's a low probability type play, but the upside gets you there in a bigger way. And I like that about the play. So as we crash into the sixes here, and before I do, I want to say, hey, welcome to Team Awesemo. If you ever want to subscribe, people join, you get the cool emojis, be part of the team, hit that subscribe button. And also, I know it's swing season golf. We need all the help we can get on the likes. Let's pump that up a little bit, show some support. I know better days are ahead for PGA, but this is still a tournament where we can make some money. And we're going to break down this field to the fullest extent of the law, as they say. Let's talk Doc Redman, Roger Sloan, Peter Malnati, a super putter. I mean, you mentioned you like to double up north of 10. You got to have some interest in the sixes.
One of the more shocking numbers. So a lot of the times DraftKings will make odds and it'll be priced pretty much down the line. They'll price down for a lot of these odds. But I have to just say, I was going through a lot of the odds, yesterday and then before the show again here today. One of the guys that really stuck out to me was Roger Sloan is 65-1 to win this golf tournament, and he's at 6,800. That is a big disparity between, you're just talking about raw upside of a player to go and win. I'm never going to bet him in a million years at 65-1. It's not going to happen. But just seeing him around guys like Troy Merritt, you're able to get at 80-1. We talked about how much we like him. Sebastian Munoz is 80-1, which I find to be very fascinating that he's even longer than him. There's a lot of players that I would regard as better players that aren't nearly getting the traction at that number. So considering 65-1 is the number, I mean, that's just a little bit, it's basically on pace with Luke List around the industry here. I just find that to be such a surprising number that I had to kind of take a deeper look into him. And then I saw that he's one of Alex, the boss man Baker's favorite plays in the pro plays. And it was just kind of another sign that there's something that exists here in some of his data. As I'm going through his box scores, I mean, his putting has been really bad for the last 2 months. And you flip that once again, you have a second at Wyndham. You have a 16th at the 3M. I think 4 guaranteed rounds of golf maybe takes some of those 3 missed cut issues away. Maybe it just buries you further into a hole. But I think he makes sense as somebody who might be able to outperform his placement point by quite a bit. And seeing 65-1, that is a pretty short number for a guy below 7K.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's got a wild range of outcomes in the outright market. No doubt about that. But at the same time, this guy, he's shown some form, and his irons can get really hot. He's got some pedigree. Wyndham, you mentioned the runner-up. He's been there, grinds, scores, certainly worse plays in the sixes than a guy like Roger Sloan. And honestly, even God, I want so badly to make a case for someone like Sam Ryder, because he does what I want in theory. He's good with the irons. He's good with the putter. It just seems to never materialize in terms of actual scoring. And that, of course, is the name of the game. I think a non-cut helps him more than most, but is that just a little too thin to go to Sam Ryder?
Yes and no. like for me, the major issue he has is he's a terrible chipper. Like he's a Victor Hovland type chipper of the golf ball, from what I recall. I mean, why is this not even coming up here?
But that just ups the variance to me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. If he can be flat in that department as well, decent enough putter. Barbasol, I mean, that was his big breakout, and he lost strokes gained putting, finished third there in that spot. I mean, golf is such an anomaly type sport, but definitely not a very good chipper of the golf ball. Off the tee, pretty flat approach, has massive spike weeks. I mean, he gained 11.1 strokes gain approach at the Barbasol, 4.9. I mean, he's gained with the approach in, what is that, 5 of his last 7. I think you could do worse underneath 7K. And again, if we're trying to find some of these builds, you don't need these guys to go out and finish top 5, top 10 in some regards. You need them to put up birdies. So I think that there's definitely a case to be made. 4 rounds of him might be better. You know, I think that that's exactly correct, where it might help him more than it will help other people.
A couple other names down here. Just going to throw them out. Let me know if you like them. We've got Matthew Neesmith, Sun Kang. And then we have a lot of Japanese tour players, but sandwiched in between all of them is Kyle Stanley at 6,200. What are you doing with these 3 guys?
So, I mean, Sung Kang is getting a stupid amount of ownership for Sung Kang. I was a little floored by it. He's been better. He's been making birdies, decent enough placement points there. And you're looking for value to be able to play studs. In Stars and Scrubs builds, I think he makes sense, but in large field stuff, I can't play a guy that's going to be that popular at 6,300 when I don't think you're losing a whole lot playing Kyle Stanley there. I have 15% Kyle Stanley. I have 1% Sung Kang. And, you know, Sung Kang is the guy who I played with at US Junior Am when I was 15 years old in Chevy Chase, Maryland, back in the day, qualified as a Junior Am participant. And the guy has the largest calf muscles of all time. I believe we've talked about that. So strokes gain calf muscles.
Wow.
If you're going to factor that into your decision-making, Sung Kang is your guy. He's tiny little dude built like a brick house, even when, I mean, he looked like 40 years old when we were 15. But the guy can definitely hit a golf ball. I can't play him at that popularity.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're talking about cheapies that are popular, and I know it's a small field relative to a normal event, I still get a little worried about that. Kyle Stanley is brutal. I really don't know what to do. And it's not because I love Kyle Stanley. It's just he truly, tee to green, is better than everybody in this range. It's not even close. But he's also the worst putter in any field that he enters. It's not even that he's a bad putter. He's just non-competitive in that department. So I still think, as crazy as it sounds, you can go to him, but
that's what I did.
I don't even know what you're expecting at this point.
Failure. I'm expecting
probably
failure.
It's tough. Then a couple guys, Sean Norris, Wesley Bryan's the min. Do you feel the need to go all the way that low, or do you say, you know what, the mid 6s is good enough for me?
I think I removed every single person except for Sean Norris. I have 1% of. Wesley Bryan, I have 1% of. And those are the only 2 players under 6,200 that I have at all. So there you go.
I'm with you. I think it's more unnecessary. If I was playing like 150, maybe I would have sprinkles of some of these guys just randomly. But I think if you're even in a GPP pool, you don't want to have just a couple shares of some of these guys unless you have a real reason. And for me, whatever you could do there, you can probably reallocate salary to bump up to the Neesmith, Ryder, Sloan, Merritt type guys more often than not. And even if you couldn't, I'd feel much better playing like Wyndham, Clark range guys than some of these guys we just have little to no information on.
Yep. Little to no information. And not only that, but we have some known quantities. And if they were that good, they would be on the PGA Tour. That's always my argument, is that if you're that good, you would be on the European Tour, you would be on the PGA Tour. And it's one of those things where they are playing a home game. So maybe there's 1 or 2 that spikes. Best of luck to you figuring out who it is without strokes gain data.
All right. It's about that time for hot takes. I do want to ask you, at the beginning of the show, you said, you didn't hate this as a betting card. Does that mean that you've drilled down into some bets that you like, or were you just speaking in generalities?
Whoa. So did you ask me, are you prepared for this show?
No, I'm just, sometimes I know for me, there are times when I look at a golf field, no joke, and I'm like, I like this for a betting card, but I don't love any particular bet. It's more just the concept. I'm going to open it up and bet 10 guys. Or sometimes it's like, I like these 3 guys and that's it.
I sprinkled Kyle
Okay.
Stanley and Doc Redman at 150 to 1.
Do what? I make the cut. Kyle Stanley, man, I can't with him.
4 straight rounds. Can we get one? Can we go one time? Hallelujah for Kyle Stanley with the putter. Can we
used
get
my one time, so you're on your own.
You used it. Who'd you use it on?
I used it and then it didn't actually. I used my one time maybe like 6 months ago, a year ago, on Harry Higgs to make an eagle on Friday, and he made it. Then it didn't ultimately help me. It was real stupid.
What a weird one time. Is that the hole out with Harry Higgs?
It might have been. It was something really. I used it without thinking. I mean, I'll get my one time back. I've used it a couple of times in my life. Okay. I used it a couple of years ago with Derrick Henry, and that one was actually important. But Kyle Stanley, more power to you. Anyone who's actually live to win the tournament.
Wow. Okay. There's the correct answer. I think Chris Kirk at 45.
That's a good one.
Is a number that I just really, really like. So Chris Kirk, a player that I'm high on in this field as well, comparably. It's also very hard to find some really good top 10 value on this golf tournament. There's a couple of pieces here or there, like Brandon Grace I like, but I'm never going to bet him at plus 350 in that regard. So it's really being sensitive to pricing. But Doug Gim, you can get plus 500, and I found a plus 600 on top 10. That's wrong. That is a wrong number. You should be betting that 100 times out of 100, regardless of the result.
I definitely think there are numbers like that, again, when you're talking about upwards of 5, 7, 10 to 1, you're just trying to come out, you're not going to hit that obviously more than half the time, even a quarter of the time at times. You're just trying to find small edges. I think Troy Merritt at plus 750 for a top 10 is interesting. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that can get in the mix. You've got Harry Higgs plus 450 for a top 10. No problem there. Just little guys like that. You only need a couple to cash. I don't love the outrights. I'll be honest. I think this tournament is won by I'll say this isn't even a hot take. The winner of this tournament is going to have multiple wins already on their resume. That's what I'm saying.
Xander and Morikawa are plus 550 and plus 700. So if you want to know what I'm saying, I'm not saying I'm going to bet my normal allotment on Kyle Stanley to win a golf tournament. It's just, for me, I think two guys at plus one or at plus or at 150 to 1. That's what I'm trying to say. It'd be plus 15,000. I think that those are the kind of things just to have some entertainment and to have some ability to watch this golf tournament. I also just think that they're good numbers comparatively, because if either one could putt rationally, we have a shot at something. But Xander and Morikawa, they're just such large favorites here. Hideki and Zalatoris, you're not getting any value at plus 1,200 and plus 1,600 there. So definitely looking more in the top 10 markets. And there are some really nice numbers, I think, and just being sensitive to some of the pricing there. Understanding, as you said, you're not going to maybe even hit it a quarter of a time, but it's similar to when you're betting top 10s. I always think of it kind of like home run plays, only better, because I have a little bit more sample size to go off of. It's not nearly as high variance. So I like going to the top 10 market in these kind of fields.
I love it. Coming up next, by the way, we've got, I'm sure you guys know this, an action-packed schedule. You're going to be talking a little NFL, a little no-house advantage. Then we've got an MLB strategy show, then the NBA deeper dive, then the NBA live before lock, all sorts of things. I also want to quickly say, if you like college football, Betting You podcast will be out tonight, ready to go. Me and Matt Kajeski giving you all the spreads for the week, who to bet, which places to avoid, traps, spreads, underdogs, money lines, everything that you like about betting. Final words here. Hot take on your way out, or are you good?
I think even just bringing up Kyle Stanley's name and being invested in him in any regard is a really nice thing. I think we've thrown out enough hot takes as it is. I think the Doug Kim top 5 is probably a nice number as well. You can get in 12 to 1 there, but plus 500 is definitely where I'm more interested, that top 10. So I think Doug Gim will get in the mix here, maybe just kind of get the putter going again. Why not him instead of Emiliano Grillo this time around?
No doubt about it. Like I said, I think this is a tournament. You can react live. You certainly can be aggressive in your builds, and maybe you can find some luck on the betting card. So we're going to bounce on out of here. Chat, as always, you guys make this show fun. Hit that like button on your way out. Appreciate the hot takes. Shout out to Mike behind the glass. Great job once again, my friend. Good luck, everyone. We will be back with more PGA golf next week.